compelling brand can set you apart from competitors, attract customers, and build a loyal following. Today, we're going to walk you through the 9 key principles of startup branding so you can build a brand that not only stands out from competitors, but lasts the test of time. These principles will not only help you build a brand that resonates with your audience, but also stands the test of time. Principle 1, define and understand your brand purpose. Now, your brand purpose is your reason for being beyond making a profit. It's about what you stand for and why your startup matters to your customers on a deeper level. A clear and well-defined brand purpose can not only connect with your audience, but it can also guide your brand as it grows from a strategic point of view. Acting like a North Star and a compass, your brand's purpose is something to put your decision-making process through as like a filter, but it also motivates and inspires your team to develop the brand on a day-to-day basis. Some things to think about when thinking about what your brand purpose is what is your reason for being beyond making a profit? Where did the genesis of this brand come from, this product, this service, this brand come from? What was the reason behind it? A lot of times there's a triggering event and there is a decision made by a founder or a couple of founders where you see a gap in the market, or something has happened to you that you want to rectify that isn't out there. There's a solution that you're looking for that you can't find. And in those moments, you tend to find this origin story has the purpose built into it. Not always, but a lot of times it does. And if you struggle with that and you don't have that kind of inception moment, then think about why you exist beyond making a profit as a business. Now, as a business, we all are in business to make money, but there is a reason we do the things we do, the thing that drives us from a passionate point of view, but also the thing that you want to achieve with your brand. If you were to take the profits away, what's the legacy you want to leave? Think about that, and from that you can usually re-engineer your brand's purpose or find out your reason for being beyond making a profit. An example of this is Airbnb, and they define their brand purpose as creating a world where anyone can belong anywhere. This goes beyond providing accommodation. This taps into the human need for connection and community. And if you look at Airbnb's marketing, their decision making, the way their brand grows, develops, innovates, it all comes back to that idea of belong anywhere. And that filters through everything they do, even into their tagline being belong anywhere. So that comes from the purpose, from right back on the sort of the internal side of the brand, that brand purpose. Everything happens from that for Airbnb. Principle number 2 is to understand your target audience. Knowing your audience or your target audience inside and out is crucial for effective branding. And if you can understand your audience better than they understand themselves, especially around how your product or service fits into their life, how it can help them, this can be a huge boost in terms of brand building and developing your brand and creating a connection between your product or service and your target audience. Look to understand their needs, their preferences, their fears, their aspirations, and the things that they're looking to achieve. All of these things can help you to paint a picture of your target audience, who they are, how you can help them, where you're taking them on a transformational journey. And with this understanding, it allows you to craft messaging, develop a strategic position, and build a product or service packaged in a brand that appeals to that target audience. Some things to do and to think about is to conduct market research, to look at the data, look at your competitors, and look at some of the comments maybe that their audience are putting on their socials, reviews like Trustpilot, potentially on different online stores. Develop customer personas and gather feedback. And all of this can help you to create a better opportunity, a better idea of who that target audience is and how you can build this brand to reach them. A great example of this is Slack, and they knew their audience was filled with tech-savvy professionals who needed quick, efficient communication tools that would help them to manage their workload, talk to their colleagues, and connect in a creative way. Slack tailored its messaging and its features of the platform to actually interact with this group and for this group specifically. And as they developed it over time, they've added more features in and they've utilized more messaging that dives deeper and niches down onto this target audience. Principle number 3 is to craft a unique value proposition. Your value proposition is what sets you apart from the competition. It's a commercial argument of why your audience should choose you. It's a clear statement that explains how you solve your customers' problems, or how you improve their situation, or the benefits you deliver to them, and why customers should choose you over others. A strong value proposition is essential for attracting and retaining customers, and make sure it's communicated consistently across all touchpoints. A great example of this is Dropbox, and they offer a unique value proposition by offering secure, simple, and accessible cloud storage options. This message is what helped Dropbox stand out in the early days from its competitors and other file sharing platforms. Principle number 4, positioning your brand effectively is crucial for startups, especially if you've developed a new product or service that requires either a subcategory of an existing category or a new category altogether. Positioning involves defining the market space that you occupy and how you differentiate yourself within it. So you can take an existing category and align yourself, position yourself towards it, and then you can work out how you're going to differentiate away from that category again. So you bring yourself towards it as an association, so people get this instant association of where you roughly are in the market, and then you can differentiate enough just to move away from it, so you have that familiarity. Or you can create a new category and relate it to an existing category or bring it slightly closer, so giving analogies and ideas about how you can use your product or service in a way that is familiar. So when you're positioning your product or service as a startup, you really need to have a look at the competitive landscape, look at what people are already saying, what are they staking claim to, and how can you differentiate, how can you stand out, what's your, as we said earlier, commercial argument for someone to choose you over the competition. And positioning really comes into that, and it's a real art form in itself. Defining a position in the market is a strategic approach, and it takes a lot of work, but when you find it, that sweet spot, you'll know, and it feels absolutely great to get that positioning nailed, and everything just kind of flows from that from a strategic perspective. If you are a startup in a new category, one of the things you need to think about is promoting the category as well as your brand. And the reason for this is your audience is probably not going to have a space in their mind already set up for whatever the category is that you are going into, and therefore you have to promote the category. What is this product? What does it do? But also promote your brand as being the choice of that category. So you want to promote both at the same time. If you do this right early on, what you can do is make your brand synonymous with that category, and you can actually create this connection in your audience's mind as the go-to in that space. A great example of this is Tesla, who not only position themselves as a car manufacturer, but a leader in sustainable energy solutions. By promoting the category of electric vehicles and emphasizing innovation, Tesla became synonymous with sustainable energy solutions and high-performance, eco-friendly transport. Principle number 5, create a consistent brand identity. Consistency is key when it comes to branding, and especially when it comes to your identity. So your identity is made up of everything from your logo, the colors you use, typography, your messaging. It's kind of an overview of who you are, and through all the different layers of what your brand is and does. And that identity wants to be consistent. So if you think about what we talked about earlier on with a purpose-driven brand such as Airbnb, and how everything that runs through them is belong anywhere, and how that runs through everything they do, that's only possible if Airbnb understands who they are as their identity. Who are Airbnb? Who are they trying to reach? And how do they show up to do that? So how do they package themselves through their visuals, through their marketing, through their messaging? How do they do that to embody that identity? But one of the key things to that is making sure they're consistent. Because if you're not consistent and you have an identity that is confusing, then you confuse your audience and you fail to stick in their mind. A consistent brand identity will make your startup feel familiar and build upon that personality, but it'll also be recognizable to your target audience. And over time and across different touch points, what will happen is people will start to visually recognize your brand, the cues of your brand, but they'll also recognize what it feels like to interact with your brand on a consistent basis. And this is where you want to be, because not many businesses do it. They don't get this consistency, and what happens is there's a confusing experience for the customer, and it doesn't build these recognizable pathways in the brain where someone realizes they're interacting with something familiar, and that also increases his memorability. Great example of this actually is Instagram, who since their rebrand some 5, 6, maybe even 7 years ago now, has been consistent with its bright, colorful, but minimalist style, clean design, and user-friendly interface. And this consistency not only is recognizable to your target audience, people will recognize the Instagram logo, they'll recognize the Instagram kind of gradient color palette they're using. They'll also recognize the interface, and they'll feel familiarity with it. But it also creates a sense of ease. that consistency, when you show up to a platform and it does what you expect it to do on a consistent basis, that gives you a sense of ease and familiarity, and it feels like something you want to come back to again and again. If you showed up to a platform and it changed every time you went to it, or it looked different, you get so overwhelmed and so confused, you'd leave in a heartbeat. So consistency is crucial. If you've enjoyed the video so far, hit the like button below this video, and in the comments below, what's your favorite new startup? If you could put any in there, it could be your startup, it could be one that you've interacted with, it could be a new brand you've come across. Give it some love in the comments below. Principle 6 is to develop a strong brand voice. Your brand voice is the tone and style that you use to communicate with your audience. It should reflect your brand's personality, and it should also embody your brand as a whole and the identity that you're trying to create, which includes your values and your purpose. So it should all align and make sense. It'd be strange if your personality is outgoing and wacky and crazy and your brand is quite conservative and minimal. It throws people off. You want to make sure that the personality and the tone of voice you're using is directly aligned with your brand, but also is perfect for your target audience. So for example, if you're a snowboard brand, you want to use language that resonates with your audience of snowboarders. You might want to use some language and the tone of a snowboarder. Use some slang that they use. Have inside language to develop that connection and feel like you're part of that tribe. So voice and personality are things that we see often overlooked when we do brand audits. A lot of the times, even when we audit a category or a sort of a competitive landscape, you'll find that many brands in that space have either not defined a personality or are purely copying the leader in that category and what they are doing. And that's a no-no. You know, if you copy somebody, you're not differentiating. If you're not differentiating, you're just blending in. If you blend in, then you are failing to reach your actual true audience. And what you're doing is replicating your competition, which is not good from a commercial perspective. So developing a unique brand voice and personality are a fantastic way to stand out and to differentiate from your competition. A great example of this is MailChimp, and they have a friendly, quirky voice that makes its communication tools feel approachable and fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and that doesn't work for all brands. But for some brands, if it works with your personality and it works with who you are and your identity and what you're trying to achieve, then by all means, take on those sort of fun characteristics like MailChimp or like a Ben & Jerry's. But for some brands, you can't have that. You need to have a distinct voice that's authentic to you, that's right for your target audience, and that's going to have that quality to differentiate you from your competition. And MailChimp are so consistent with that tone of voice and the way that they've baked it into everything they do, whether that is through the website interactions, or when you set up a new campaign for an email campaign, or even if you're interacting with their customer service, they all have this fun, quirky, approachable voice. It's kind of laid back, and it kind of ties into who they're trying to connect with, which with their shift to more communications and marketing tools, they are looking to connect with agencies, creatives, freelancers, those kinds of people. And that's who they're trying to speak to. And so they use the language that reflects their audience. So brand voice and personality, if you can get it right, then you can actually have a real differentiator on your hands where you instantly stand out and you're recognizable. And if you get the language right and you speak to your audience, then you cut straight through the noise. Principle number 7 is to focus on product or service excellence. Your brand can only be as strong as the product or service you offer. Excellence in your product or service is key to building a reputable brand. So you can do all great marketing and you can get your customer over the line. If your experience of working with that client, if the customer has a bad experience working with your brand, if your product isn't up to scratch, if your service isn't great enough or good enough or wows them or takes them on a journey, then they're not going to refer you, they're not going to be a repeat customer, and they're not going to become a brand advocate. So then you have to keep on finding newer and newer customers. So one way of actually stopping that constant need to find new customers, which we all have to do anyway, but if you can retain the ones you already have, if you can get them coming back and repeat buying, and if you can give them an experience that they want to tell everyone about, you build an army of advocates for you that will do the groundwork for your marketing on the street. So developing excellence in your product or service is a great way to maintain your customers, to give them a long-term experience, and to build them into advocates. A great example of this is Zoom. So Zoom has become synonymous with high quality video conferencing. Their commitment to providing excellence and having a seamless experience to video conferencing has helped to elevate them as one of the leading brands in this space. And obviously during COVID, it was something that we rapidly adopted. A lot of people rapidly adopted who hadn't been doing video conferencing before. And Zoom really stepped up and they adapted quickly, they innovated, they developed their brand as they needed to in order to keep up with demand, keep up with feature requests, and actually developing a brand that grew with us over that period. Zoom did a really great job of starting out with an excellent product that they continued to innovate and develop and grow as they needed to match consumer demand, changes, and ideals. And because of that, people who use Zoom will stick with it. And even if it isn't the best video conferencing software, people will swear that it is because of the experience they have with it. And there's that saying, people won't remember what you say, but they'll remember how you make them feel. So if you need to create an excellent product or service, and don't be afraid to launch it and to know that you're going to need to iterate and innovate and make it better as you go. If you can keep doing that and adding new things in and developing it with your audience, they will grow with you and you will grow with them. Principle number 8 is to engage with your community. So building a strong brand isn't just about broadcasting your message out there. It's also about engaging with your audience and building a community where you have that two-way conversation. So like we just talked about with the idea of Zoom, developing and iterating and innovating as they needed to with their audience's demands and changing landscape and new things that were happening. That didn't happen in a vacuum, and it wouldn't have happened if Zoom hadn't been in conversation or looking at data and or both of those things, gathering feedback from their audience. And actually by including their audience in those developments, what they actually did was build a community of advocates that were helping to develop the brand. And great ways to do this are through social media, asking questions on your social channels, putting polls up, looking to gather feedback through newsletters, having surveys on your website or customer feedback forms where you can get information about how they're feeling, how they're thinking, what their current experience is, and listening to those customers when they tell you things that they want to see, that they want to be developed, that they want to learn more of. And in a lot of cases, it's really just about helping them feel as though they're part of something. So building a tribe or a community that they feel part of, that they can be an advocate for, but also that they feel they have a say in, or they can have feedback, or they can reach out, that there isn't this huge ivory tower, they can't connect with the brand, which is why social media is so great, because it breaks down some of those barriers. So utilize it in the best way you can to talk to your audience, discuss things with them, and actually allow them a voice of their own on behalf of your brand. A great example of this is Glossier, who actively utilizes their target audience in product development and marketing. Through social media interactions and feedback loops, Glossier has built an engaged and active community around their brand. Principle number 9 is to measure and adapt your brand strategy. So branding is not a set it and forget it task. It's important to continually measure the effectiveness of your brand and adapt as necessary. And as we've looked at in some of the examples previously, adaptation, growth, evolution, innovation, these are all things at the heart of great brands. They know how to do it. But the reason they can innovate and they can adapt and they can change is they have a strong foundation in understanding who they are from their identity perspective, who their audience are, and then what they're trying to achieve with their brand. So those three things together means if you know who you are, you know who your audience are, and you know what you're trying to achieve as a brand, or some of the internals, the core brand, your purpose, vision, mission, and values, what you can do is you can start to develop and adapt and innovate, and you become bulletproof. So you can change with technological changes, you can change with societal changes, you can change with geopolitical events. You can adapt and move with them if you have a strong foundation. If you don't, and you don't know who you are, and you don't truly know who your audience are, and you have no idea about what your purpose or your mission is, when things change around you, it becomes confusing, it becomes overwhelming, and it can destroy the brand. So you need to have those foundations in place, but the best brands continue to evolve, they continue to innovate, and they continue to grow. But all the time, they stay true to themselves. And it's that level of authenticity and consistency that matters. So staying consistent whilst innovating and adapting. You are still who you are. You can adapt and change as you need to. So constantly coming back to your strategy, constantly reevaluating, looking at the landscape, looking at your competitors, looking at what your audience are telling you, Looking at your indirect competitors, people that are potentially stealing your competitors in different ways than just direct competition. Looking at what's happening around the ecosystem of your brand. All of that is a good thing to do continuously, and reevaluating what you want to do next, how you want to grow, where do you want to expand into. All of these things should be stuff that you do on a regular basis. A great example of this is Spotify, and they continually measure user data in order to refine their brand strategy. So they'll look at listening habits and take user feedback in order to directly feed that into how they develop the brand going forward. And not just the brand itself, the identity, but also the way they market the brand, and also the way the platform works. So as a Spotify user, you feel like by using the platform, you're actually actively influencing the brand as it goes forward, which is quite an exciting thing to have. And if you can do that with your audience, and you can make your audience feel as though they're contributing in that way, it can create a really strong bond between you and your target audience. Do you want to know how effective your current brand is? What's strong, what's weak, and what's holding you back? We actually have a 4-minute brand power assessment, and it takes you through a number of questions across 5 key areas of your brand. And at the end of it, you'll get a percentage score out of 100, which will highlight the areas that you need to focus on in order to create an impactful, memorable brand. If you're interested in that, there is a link in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, hit the subscribe button below. Videos come out weekly, and they're designed to help you unlock your brand's potential so you can stand out from the competition and create more impact. Have a great week, catch up soon, and keep those brands unified.